Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to sew the collar. So I have my pieces cut out here. I have the collar, which is interfaced. I have the under collar, which is not interfaced. I have the stand pieces cut out, one in the lining and one in the self fabric, and the self fabric one is interfaced. If I turn over the collar piece here, so this is that upper collar, you'll notice the interfacing is a little bit smaller than the piece, and that is because you use the under collar piece to cut out the collar interfacing, so it ends up just being a bit smaller, which helps reduce bulk a bit. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to attach the stand lining to the collar. Now you'll notice on the stand and the stand lining, you'll notice on the stand and the stand lining that one edge is notched, and that edge is the one that's going to be attached to the neckline. So we don't want to attach that one to the collar. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just fold it in half to find my center back. And I can just put like a good crease in this one because it's just a cotton shirting. And then I'm going to go right sides together. I'm just going to mark where that center back is on my collar piece as well. And just pop a pin in it. Then I'm going to go right sides together. There's no actual wrong and right side with this particular fabric, but I'm just going to match that center back up there. And just ensuring that I'm not pinning this notched side on. Now this end here, I'm going to pin this edge here. Can you see how nicely that matches up there? So I'm just going to pop a pin in here, and then I'm just going to match the curves. So you shouldn't need to like ease it or anything. It should just fit nicely. I suppose if your fabric's stretched out a whole bunch or something, it might be the case, but you've interfaced it, so it shouldn't do that. If you find that you are having to ease, just double check that you haven't, you're not pinning the wrong side of the stand lining. Okay, so that's the stand lining to the collar, so the collar's interfaced. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the under collar, which is not interfaced, and the stand, which is interfaced. So I'm just going to find the edge that has the notches on it, and that's the side that is not going to get pinned on, and I'm just going to pin that one on as well, just in the same way. Probably could have just found the center backs of both, but I didn't. Sometimes I find that when I'm matching opposite curves like this, it seems like it's not going to match up, and then it just kind of does. Because when you're actually matching the curves, it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to sew both those pieces, the stand to the under collar and the stand lining to the collar, using a 1 centimeter seam allowance. I'm going to begin sewing right at this point here. So right where this point of the stand is, I'm going to sew there using a 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way along, and then I'll be back to show you the next step. Okay, so I have sewn those seams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pin stitch down So for the collar and collar lining, I'm going to have the seams pressing down toward the collar stand, and I'm going to pin stitch or edge stitch just on the collar stand lining side of this seam. For the under collar, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clip a little bit, clip my curve, being sure not to cut through that stitching line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this seam open like that. And then I'm going to pin stitch on either side of this seam here. And pin stitch on either side of it. So basically this one will be pin stitched open, or understitched really, almost open, and this one will be down towards the collar stand. Okay, so I have just pin stitched this one with the seams going down, and then this one has been pin stitched just with to either side, so pressing that seam open. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my iron, I'm going to turn this, this is the collar and stand lining, and I'm just going to press it up to the wrong side, just by 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch, or just even a little tiny bit less. So I'm just going to press that up all the way around. Sorry, just along this neckline edge, not all the way. So from tip to tip, and I'll show you. Okie dokie, so I've pressed this neckline edge up on the collar and lining. So what you'll see is, actually if I open that out, you'll see that the collar piece is just very slightly larger than the under collar, and that's just so that when it when you turn it through and it rolls, the kind of thickness of the cloth is taken into account. So we need to preserve that. So I'm going to match this corner first. This is that corner of the collar, and I'm going to pin it. Okay, and then this edge, I want to make sure that that is 1 centimeter up, because we've turned this centimeter, turn this up by 1 centimeter, and so I'm going to just make sure it's placed just 1 centimeter away from this cut edge here. And then you'll see these pieces won't match. That's fine. So we are going to ease them in this case. So I like to just kind of just give it a gentle stretch, just so they match, and then just grab it in the middle and then pop a pin in. Let's do that same thing on the other side. So we're matching that corner. Oop. Popping a pin in it. And then on this side, remember, we're not matching them, we're just making sure that this folded edge is 1 centimeter up from that edge. And then it's not going to match, so I'm going to just give it a little ease in. And pop a pin in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my collar in half and mark the center of this outside curve of the collar on each of the pieces. Oopsie. There's that one. This one. Just going to match those together. Okay, and again, they don't match exactly because the collar is cut slightly larger. So I'm just going to pin it, just easing it very slightly as I go. So I'm easing the collar side into the under collar. So when you're sewing it, it's really important that you continue the easing. You don't like allow it to over, like, you know, hang over the edge or something. You want to preserve that ease in there. I think something that you just kind of learn over time is how much different fabrics will ease and when to ease and when not to ease, because there are definitely times when you don't want to ease your like fabrics in. Like there's definitely times when you want them to match exactly, and other times when it's not the case. So yeah, just something that kind of comes with handling like a lot of different fabrics. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew around these 3 corners, but what I will do is when I get to this corner here, instead of pivoting directly at the corner, I'm going to stop a couple of stitches short and sew on a diagonal. So I'm going to zoom you into my sewing machine so you can see that. So I'm just using a 1 centimeter seam allowance here. I've got this collar still turned over by 1 centimeter. I'm just going to ease that in. In this context, you know, I can basically just give this fabric a bit of a gentle stretch. Now we're kind of coming up to that corner, and like I said, you know, I don't want to actually pivot directly at the corner. What I'm going to do is pivot a little early and go diagonally across by 2 or 3 stitches. Now, the thicker your fabric is, the more stitches it would be. So this is quite a thick coating, so I'm going to do 3. Okay, and then pivot round and then sew the rest of the collar. Just making sure I'm maintaining that ease. Coming up to that point again. Okay, stopping with my needle down, lifting my presser foot. I'm going to go across 3 stitches. There we go. Just try and keep it symmetrical on both sides if you can. Lost it. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see how I have gone across that corner there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to grade and clip the seams. So I'm going to grade some of the under collar. So I'm just going to trim back that seam allowance a bit. Just kind of running my fingers down between the seam allowance, just so I'm not getting more layers than I want to. Okay, and then I'm going to cut off this corner here With a coating this thick, you're never going to have that really sharp corner that you would in a shirt. So we're just, again, accounting for the tone of the cloth, so the thickness of the fabric. And now I'm just going to clip along this outside curve so it will turn nicely. Great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up and I'm going to push my seam allowances towards the under collar, and I'm going to understitch. So all the seam allowances are towards the under collar side, and I just can feel it with my hands. You won't be able to go all the way into the corner. It's not a big deal. So understitching is really helpful here. Oops, my needle just came unthreaded, I think. Did it? Yep, it did. Okay. Okay, I'm back with the needle threaded. Let's try that again, shall we? Okay, when I'm understitching, I'm just always feeling on this side where I don't want to feel any seam allowance, and this side where I want to feel a lot of seam allowance. Just making sure the seam's nice and opened up. No need to press before you understitch. The understitching kind of does half the work for you. So I can feel coming up here that it's not, the seam allowance isn't in the right place. I'm just gonna encourage it to go the right way. Okay, so you can't go all the way into the corner, and that's fine. Okay, now I'm going to turn through. I like to stick my thumb inside here and turn the collar through. Then I go to get in trouble because I like to stick my scissors in and very gently just give it a bit of a poke. Not pressing hard, like poking it hard, I'm just giving it a bit of encouragement. So on this side. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to press it. Now you have to excuse me, I'm kind of reaching around my camera stand here, but we can see how we've understitched it here. So now we need to press it. So I have a press cloth here. This is a silk organza one, which is my preferred pressing cloth. I'm just going to put it into position. Get my organza over the top. And apply some steam. So I'm not actually pressing very hard. Okay, so applying steam. That noise that you heard is actually my ironing board. It has a vacuum in it, so it sucks the steam through the fabric, which is, you know, you don't have to do that, but it does help. I like to give it just a once over. You can see that it's rolling nicely, so we can't see that the back of the under collar. Let's do this other side. So that worked pretty well. Now if your collar's not pressing as cleanly as you would like to, you can use a clapper. So, oops. This is the clapper I have. It's a combination with a point presser. You can get just a piece of wood. You can just use a piece of wood, is fine too. Just as long as it probably shouldn't have like varnish or be treated, just a plain piece of wood. So the way you use that is apply some steam, quite a bit. And then use your clapper to clap down. I'm using a pressing motion and not like moving it back and forth. And can you see how flat that's made it? I'm going to do it without the vacuum just so you can see how much steam I'm using. Don't know if you can see just how much steam I was using there, and I was hovering it above the collar. There we go. So that gives you a really crisp collar crease. You just want to make sure that you don't, like there's curvature in this collar and in the collar stand, and that's so it has some shaping. You just want to make sure you don't like get rid of that when you're pressing, because it's there so it will shape around the body. If you've got a fabric that's really being recalcitrant, you can actually just like sit the clapper on there, go away and let it cool. Okay, so now we've got it pressed. This next step is optional, but I'm going to show you how to shape the collar around a ham. So if you have a ham, here's a homemade one. You certainly don't have to buy one. Okay, I'm going to show you how to shape the collar around a ham now. So I made this one, it's filled with fabric scraps. On one side is pure wool and the other side is cotton. I recommend using a pure wool on one side and cotton on the other just because of the heat, or you could use linen instead of cotton would be fine. So I'm just going to pin my collar onto the ham, and I'm using glass head pins because they can take heat. So I'm just pinning the front here, just straight in like that, and then I'm wrapping it around the ham. Doesn't matter, it's going to overlap a little bit, that's fine. And then I'm pinning the other center front, it's just overlapping, not a problem. So what my goal for this to do is to set that roll in. So now I'm just gonna, you know, like if you put a shirt on, you just kind of fold it down. So I'm just doing that. And I want to make sure that roll line goes all the way down to where the stand is. So you might just have to fiddle with it. Now you'll notice that the stand ends like on the side here, so at that point you will just like the roll line actually, oops, sorry. The roll line will actually go to nothing here. So you could even pin it like that would be fine. Oops, bending my pin. Just gonna put a pin there to help me guide it. Just putting the pin at the top of the stand. Oops, I just bent my pin really badly. These pins are a little bit flimsy. So can you see here how that stand lining is just visible? So I want to get this as nice as I can. Got that pinned here. Now what I'm going to do, oops, is I'm just going to steam it. I am not touching it with the iron. So I'm not pressing it. I'm just basically trying to infuse some steam into the fabric. Oh, my iron's dripping, not the best. And I'm sure my camera is now all fogged up. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just using my hands just to mold that in and just to encourage it to roll into the position. Now, you can do that just as much as you like until you get the shape that you like, just ensuring that that the under collar is not visible. And then what you'll do is you'll just let it sit there until it's cooled down completely. So let it kind of set on the ham. When you take it off the ham, it should have some shape to it. So hope that helped with the collar.